Hey everyone, this is Fabio and welcome back to a new video, and this is going to be a fun one. Lately, my good friend Leo the Funny Nerd has made some 3DS focused videos, and that made me think it could be fun to do something similar, as in to have a look at my 3DS collection and make a video related to that. And then I've noticed something. Since my collection is it's rather small. I only have 22 3DS games. And I've noticed that I finished exactly half of them, which is a pretty good completion ratio kind of thing. So say this could be a good occasion to make a 3DS focus list, actually. Specifically, let's rank based on like half of the games in my collection. Let's rank my current favorite 3DS games. So this is going to be a top 11, obviously. And what can we say about the 3DS? It's a fantastic console, the obvious and very good evolution of the DS, which was already a phenomenal console on its own, and really took handheld gaming to the next level, together with both, of course, the PSP and then the PS Vita, its main competitor, but though there wasn't much competition, to be honest, between the two. I love the Vita, but 3DS, like, just mopped the floor with it. There's not much of a discussion there. And there are plenty of 3DS games that I'm interested in, that I still need to play, that I still need to buy. I mean, I ideally would like my collection to grow significantly from just 22 games. Although, so far, I've been very, very happy with the 3DS. The issue with it, I get it, I got it so late, simply because I kept buying other systems. Every time I said, should I get the PSP or the 3DS? Well, the PSP has Trails in the Sky, so let's get that one. And I bought like 40 something games for the PSP. Should I get the PS Vita or the 3DS? Well, the PS Vita has the Trails game and has all this interesting Japanese stuff. Also, it looks super, super cool. So I got the Vita. And then finally I said, well, I have to get the 3DS at this point. And as I say, I've been very, very happy with it. Unfortunately, in the last, I say at least couple of years, it hasn't received the attention it deserves, primarily because of the Switch. I mean, it's hard to move away from that console when it comes to handheld gaming. It just brought it to a whole next level. But definitely, as I said, there are still plenty of games just within my collection that I want and need to play on the 3DS. So as I said, this is most likely a temporary list, although I think that my top games are going to be very difficult to change. But we'll see. I'm always open to the possibilities. So without further ado, after this introduction, let's start ranking my top 11 3DS games. And we're going to start from the bottom, of course, with what might have been my only sort of disappointment on the system, and that is Hyrule Warriors Legends. Basically, this is the game that has solidified my sickness, disdain, simply like the fact that I was not interested anymore in the Dynasty Warrior formula or the Muso games, if we want to be cool. As I said, it's just a genre I don't give a crap about in the slightest anymore. I remember, like, I played the crap out of like Dynasty Warriors. What was it, 3, 4, on the original Xbox? Like, I pumped so many hours in that, so much fun. By now, I was getting sick and tired of it, and I can see the fun of this game. I mean, I've experienced it myself firsthand. Like, you just turn off your brain and mow down hordes of like endless guards and stuff like that, but it gets super repetitive very, very fast. I appreciate what Hyrule Warriors did. I mean, don't misunderstand me. Even if it's just at the bottom of the list, this is not a bad game in the slightest. I mean, it's a good variation on the Muso formula. Just the idea of being in the Zelda universe is pretty neat. And he also added, for example, boss battles, which are pretty cool. It's not just you face soldiers and officers, but it's just also one thing that I don't like in these games. Like, the soldiers are so useless and stupid. They just stand there waiting for you to just kill the thousands of them. It's boring. It's extremely repetitive. But as I say, Hyrule Warriors like had all the different Zelda characters, which is it was cool to play as Link, Sheik, female Link, and all others. I mean, it's a good game. It's a very well made game. I think the 3DS version is kind of a poor port of the one on the Wii U. It's still impressive, but it's of course, as I say, it's just like a B tier kind of thing. And then, of course, for what I understand, like the what's it called, Age of Calamity, which added all the Breath of the Wild thing. That's supposed to be very good, but as I said, absolutely don't care about Muso games anymore. For example, I bought a Fire Emblem Warriors kind of game. I played for 2 hours, was sick and tired of it already. I'm absolutely not interested in the recently released one based on Three Houses, for example. I mean, Dynasty Warriors games are not for me at the moment. Definitely a game, a genre I'm happy to skip without any remorse. So at number 11, we start with Hyrule Warriors Legends. Number 10, this may be a bit of a surprise because how much of a fan I am of this series. But near the bottom, we have Castlevania Lords of Shadows Mirror of Fate. Now, let me state immediately that this is not a bad game, nor a bad Castlevania game. It's just not as good as the rest of the series to me. I still need to play the previous two Lords of Shadows games on PS3. I own the first one, I want to play it eventually, but just the fact that it looks like a God of War with a Castlevania skin kind of made me drag my feet like, well, I want to play something more interesting than that. And probably I like it because I like my hack and slash. I love the Castlevania series. I like the fact they kind of rebooted the series in a way, though and added the twist that Gabriel Belmont will become Dracula at the end. So plenty of interesting ideas. It's just that, yeah, I mean, it's not been a priority lately. But Mirror of Fate, let's talk about that. I have a feeling that whenever I play the other two Lords of Shadow, this will still be my favorite of the trilogy. Because I like the idea that for the portable console, they make it like the portable Castlevania games, so Metroidvania games. The issue being that this is a very simple and easy Metroidvania game. It's, I would say, decent first attempt from Mercury's team. I mean, we know they're very good at this. Look at Metroid games, for example. So I wouldn't mind Mercury's team to do another, say, Mirror of Fate 2 with all the experience they gathered through the Metroid games. I would say that would probably be amazing. It would probably make a better job than Konami would. But of course, since the Castlevania name is linked to Konami, that's a whole kind of problem. Adjust the camera. But Mirror of Fate, as I said, it's fun. It's a fun game. I enjoyed my time with it. It's simply the fact to me there are better games in the series. Even just within the Metroidvania ones. I mean, it pales in comparison to, say, the DS trilogy, or even Bloodstain is far better than Mirror of Fate. It's a good entry point, I would say, to Metroidvania Castlevania games, though in a way it's connected to the other Lords of Shadows games and lore. So, but you don't need to play the other two, I think, to enjoy Mirror of Fate. As I say, overall, it's a decent Castlevania game. I would say the music was very disappointing, considering that music is a very, very important element in a Castlevania game, and consider how legendary Castlevania music is, it was kind of a letdown to me. I say, wow, I would love to have, like, I was listening to older Castlevania music while I was playing Mirrors of Fate, because I say I'm not missing anything here. I remember a decent track was maybe the inventory music or something like that, just to give an idea. Let's say the combat was fun. The game was fun. The stories are decent, even though I think the orders were wrong, but that's just a detail. Overall, a decent Castlevania game. Just if this is the only one you played, there are far better ones out there, both within the Metroidvania genre and also within the classic ones, which are my personal favorite, but that's a different story. So number 10, Castlevania Lords of Shadows Mirror of Fate. A good game, is just that I expected more from Castlevania. Number 9, I'm kind of shocked that this game is quite near the bottom, but unfortunately it gives an idea of how stiff the competition is, because I greatly enjoyed this, and that is Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. Speaking of Metroidvania, even though this is a very light-hearted one, but it still has elements of like the backtracking and all of that. This was such a fun game. Greatly enjoyed everything about it. The story is kind of silly and fun, as you would expect from a Shantae game. The platforming was good. The art style, it's gorgeous, even from a 3DS game. It just makes me want a sort of Shantae RPG so much more. There's massive potential there to have a very light-hearted, almost comic RPG from Way Forward. I'm still hoping for that because it would be so great, like a sort of like Super Mario RPG kind of thing. It would work magnificently, I think. But Pirates Curse, as I say, it's a lot of fun. There's not much to say about it. It's your typical Shantae game. It's a platformer with backtracking, with this very fun cast of really fun, I should say, cast of characters, starting from Shantae herself, Risky the pirate, like the zombie friend, and all of that. I love this world. I would love to play more Shantae games, but for the most part, they get very pricey. But there are ways around it, so I'll eventually play more of this series. But really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, couldn't get higher than number 9. But I would say, brief parenthesis here, that with the exception of Hyrule Warrior, I greatly enjoyed all the other 10 games. And it's not that I disliked Hyrule Warrior, it's just that it confirmed my sickness for the genre. But from Castlevania, Shantae, I had great times with these games. So it was difficult and not at the same time making this list. But number 9, Shantae the Pirate's Curse. Really fun, light Metroidvania platformer kind of game. Highly recommended. Number 8. Not actually, number 8. This is a game that I greatly enjoyed. A massive surprise. Unfortunately, couldn't get higher than this. Again, prove how great the 3DS games are. And that is Seven Dragon 3, code VFD. The only game I played of the Seven Dragons series. The first one was released on the DS. Then we have the 2020 duology on the 3DS, on the PSP actually. But these were all Japan. And then for whatever reason, we randomly got the third game on the 3DS. And this was a great surprise. It's kind of a slow burner in terms of story, but by the time you get, like, I would say the final fourth of the game, the story got really good, emotional, and with interesting twists here and there. This is a very old school turn-based RPG, in a sense that the battles happen in first person, you see the enemies, and then you see your characters attacking. There is a job system, and I also really love the art style of these games, especially from the 2020 games. I really enjoyed that, the character design and all of that. Like, the artist is a famous mangaka, but I cannot remember his name, or her name even. I cannot remember that, but I love that style, especially in the design of characters. And as I said, the story is really cool, and the music was excellent in Seven Dragon 3, as it was not a surprise since it was done by Yuzo Koshiro. So I even downloaded some of the themes out of this game. I mean, it's a really solid game, a bit of a slow burner, but it involves time travel in some sort. A very interesting cast of characters. The only problem I have with it's a minor issue in reality, is that your party member is not interesting because they're all silent characters basically. While there are characters from the different species and time periods, you should have just recruited them. At least they have a personality. But yeah, some of the boss battles especially were a lot of fun and very emotional. Especially, I remember 2 of them being very awesome. One that I didn't expect at all. But great game, big surprise, and a personal favorite on the 3DS despite its position on the list. I really enjoyed Seven Dragon 3. I hope we might get a sort of compilation of like the whole Seven Dragon series, but it's never going to happen. But it would be amazing to have all of the Seven Dragon games on the Switch in some shape or format. One can dream, but this is a very solid entry on my list. Greatly enjoyed my time with Seven Dragon. Number 7, again, I expected this game to be higher on the list, but I couldn't help it. Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valencia. What a great game. Fantastic. One of my favorites in the series. Love the story, love the characters, love the combat system, love the music, love the graphics, love the voice acting. A complete package of a game, in my opinion. This is a remake of the second ever Fire Emblem game released on the Famicom, Fire Emblem Gaiden. And it's one of those remakes that improved the game, I think, 1,000 times. Kind of like Oath in Felghana, massively improved East 3. We're talking about that kind of remake. And Echoes didn't disappoint. To me, it was almost as good as another Fire Emblem game we're going to talk about later, as you can imagine. And it's still one of my personal favorites. I really like the characters, and I really, really enjoyed the villain. The supposed villain, let's say. Much better. I think at the moment he might be my favorite, let's say antagonist rather than villain. Once you fight him and understand what happened, it changed all the how you see the game and the game's story. Even better than Awakening in that sense, I think. To me, at the moment, Echoes has the best antagonist. I wish we would get more Echoes versions of older Fire Emblem games. They talk forever about, what's it called, Blazing Blade, the one with Roy, I think. They talked forever about Genealogy of the Holy War. These are games that are exclusive to Japan. It would be amazing to have more older Fire Emblem games with the Echo treatment, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I think Three Houses was a sort of small variation on the Fire Emblem formula, and I enjoyed it. It's not my favorite by a long shot, but now that Fire Emblem is so popular for Nintendo, I hope we'll get more remake because it's such an amazing series, and Echoes. My goodness, this game was really, really good. I loved my time with this game from beginning to end. Again, it couldn't get higher on the list, but don't let its position here fool you, because this is a phenomenal game. And number 6, speaking of phenomenal, I mean, it's crazy that this is outside of the top 5, but we have Metroid Samus Returns. One of my favorite Metroid game. I know it's sacrilege to say that Super Metroid is not the best, but I would say I at least have 3 games that to me are better than Super Metroid. We got Samus Returns, we have Dread, and Fusion. All of them to me are better than Super Metroid. Santa Maria! Nevertheless, it's a Metroid game. The genesis of the whole Metroidvania thing, and whenever you're playing a Metroid game, you're gonna have a good time if you like that genre. And Samus's Return was a fantastic return to form for the series that at the time it desperately needed, because we have to remember Metroid was in a weird situation back then, primarily because of the flop of Other M, even though that was a good game. I don't understand the hate. I mean, I do, but it was way, way too excessive, in my opinion. I mean, yes, the story was not very good, but it's a Metroid game. What do you expect? The gameplay was excellent, on the other hand, I think. Easily one of the best games on the Wii, in my opinion. But then, like, when Metroid, like, when the fandom was asking for Metroid games like crazy, Nintendo kind of like lulls them by releasing Federation Force. It was yeah, my dog is chatting with others. Metroid Federation Force, but then we got, I don't remember if we got this before or after Federation Force, but this was like the moment that, like, yes, this is what we want, damn it, Nintendo. And hopefully, I mean, luckily they listened and they released the superb Metroid Dread on the Switch, which was amazing, like 10 years in the making or something. But please, Nintendo, keep making these classic Metroid games. Simple, they work amazingly, and we love them. I don't want anything weirder with Metroid. I just want this 10, 15 hours adventures with Samus, and I'm very, very happy. Samus's Return, as I say, easily one of my favorites in the entire series, and a easily contender as one of the best 3DS games. Just personal preferences prevented it to get into the top 5. And speaking of top 5, here we go. At number 5, we have a personal favorite of mine, a rather important game, and that is Tales of the Abyss. Original release on the PS2, we got the 3DS port, and this is the game that got me into the Tales of series, which is something I'm very, very grateful for, since it's rapidly becoming one of my favorites. Tales of the Abyss, it's not my favorite anymore. Other games have surpassed it, but it's still a really personal favorite, especially simply because I absolutely love the journey and story of Luke von Fabre. In my opinion, that is the real reason to play the game. Well, the main story, it's interesting, it's a lot of who the fuck cares. Also because Abyss so far has been one of the worst cases of all the RPG jibber-jabber nonsense. It's like there are all this weird terminology. It's something that really gave me headache when I was playing, like the Qliphoth, the Sephiroth, the false Sophon melody or whatever the fuck it was called, the replicas and all of that. I was like, Jesus. But the main villain's plan was actually interesting, the idea of replacing all of the world's population with clones. I don't remember why it was a good idea for him, but I kind of like the main plan. But as I said, the real reason why this game should be played is the journey of Luke von Fabre. To me, one of the best cases of character development in a video game. I really like how he's unsufferable at the beginning, then a big tragedy happens, partly because of him, though he's been tricked in causing it, and then he really sees this as the occasion to change completely who he is, and by the end, he's a fantastic and completely different character. And in fact, the final battle between him and Ash, it's still potentially my favorite moment in the entire Tales series, with the friggin' brilliant music in the background, the burst of emotions from both of them, like Ash being unsufferable and Luke being a completely different character, battling each other. Such a great, unforgettable moment to me. So, solid number 5, a personal favorite Tales of game, and that it's Tales of the Abyss. Definitely deserves to be in the top 5 to me. Number 4, we have one of the biggest missed opportunities, I think, one of the biggest case of a game that apparently not many people played, but everyone who played absolutely loved it, and that it's Stellar Glow. A great strategy RPG with a fantastic story, unforgettable character, great music, and it's such a great experience to go through that game. And it's something that I enjoyed from beginning to end. And I really like the world building they do in the game. As I like the role of music and singing in the story, the connection with the angels, and all of that. My dog will never stop barking. You know that. Several dogs were barking at the same time. I had to pause this. Let's hope they're done. So I was talking about Stellar Glow, but the tragedy of this game is that it was extremely well made. As I said, it's a very, very competent game, but unfortunately was not successful enough to save its studio, Imagipuch, which had to close doors after the release of this game. Unfortunately, it wasn't a Fire Emblem Awakening kind of situation, but I would say, what a way to go. They left us with one of the best games on the 3DS, and definitely a top-tier strategy RPG. Also, like, I really love how bright and colorful this world is, even though the story gets really dark at times. Great, unforgettable character, the whole mechanics with the witches and songs, great stuff. I mean, it's an unforgettable experience. And it's a game I'm very, very happy that I was able to play on the 3DS. Unfortunately, it wasn't as successful as it deserved to be, but many, many games are like this, trust me. But Stellar Glow definitely deserves to be amongst the best 3DS game, easily, in my opinion. It's that good of a game. Number three. Kind of surprised that it's only on number three, as this is really, really special. That is Fire Emblem Awakening. I mean, it has to be in the top three 3DS game, easily, in my opinion. What can we say? It's my favorite Fire Emblem game. It's most likely within my favorite games of all time. And I would say at the moment it might be my favorite strategy RPG ever. It was just like the perfect game to me at the perfect time. It's the first game I played on the 3DS, and wow, I loved everything about it. I mean, there's so many good things about this game, but in particular, the gameplay, I think we have to talk about that. Actually, no, we'll talk about it in a moment. First, I love the story. Maybe it's not mind-blowing like most Fire Emblem stories, but it's always good. I like it. Both parts of it, in a way, like the beginning with the whole thing with war between these two countries, the sacrifice of one of the main characters, like older sister. It's great, like to kind of seek to bend the wounds between these two nations with a, like, Fire Emblem always, in my opinion, does the whole tragedy of war and darkness of war very well, considering like the old bubbly and waifus and stuff. Then also, I love this sort of impending doom kind of story, like this huge dragon destroying the world in the future. So Lucina has to go back in time together with the sons of the different characters, so you can have several combinations. It's great. I mean, such a cool idea, fighting with all the children in your army, and there are some really good characters over there, and quite the unforgettable ones. The only thing, like, was a bit of a, not disappointment, but I didn't love it, was one of the main antagonists, as like, especially when compared to Echoes, there was a major letdown. Like the character from another continent, I don't remember very well, but there was a kind of a generic foreign invader. I mean, not all enemies have to be super deep and complex, but a bit of that would be appreciated. But also the game looks absolutely stunningly gorgeous on the 3DS. Probably still one of the best looking game on that console. And let's talk about the gameplay, kind of the elephant in the room, because, I mean, it's excellent, but in a way, it's so good that it broke the series to me. Like, I cannot get into older Fire Emblem games because of Awakening. Like, I tried the first one on the GBA, which is a good game. It's a really good one. But every moment I was playing, I was constantly thinking, I wish this game had Awakening's combat system. It's just like, it works so well in Awakening that it's really hard to get into the older Fire Emblem games. So, I mean, I love the series and I will play those older one eventually, but it's tough to get into them because of Awakening. And thanks to that game, not only Intelligence System was saved, because we have to remember, Fire Emblem, it's a Nintendo second-party series. It's not made by them. It's made by Intelligence System for them, and now has become a major series within Nintendo's IPs, thanks to Awakening's success. Then we had Echoes, we have Fates, we have Three Houses. All of these were major hits for the Big N, which is great, so we'll have, for sure, more Fire Emblems in the future, which I'm absolutely happy. I mean, that's a very nice prospect for the future. I cannot wait to see what they'll do for the next major Fire Emblem game. Very, very curious. Okay, number 2. Very tempted to put this at number 1, but at the end of the day, I had to give it to another game. In second position, we have Xenoblade Chronicles 3D. This is how I experienced Xenoblade Chronicles. So yes, I played the Poorsman version, but just the idea of playing a game like Xenoblade on the 3DS, it's impressive enough. And the important thing is experiencing Xenoblade Chronicles, because this is an RPG that I think everyone must play, because, oh my goodness, this is great stuff. It can be a bit of a slow burner for certain things, but once you get into it, there's no stopping. Even in my case, it took me a while, I'd say maybe 10 hours to probably get into, but then I was primarily because of the battle system, which I'm not a huge fan of, because I'm more of a turn-based guy and this is all action. But it's a fun action RPG, and no problems with that. Especially once I kind of learned to play the game, I was really enjoying myself. But, of course, to me, the best part of Xenoblade Chronicles is not even the story. It's certainly not the battle system. I have to say, not even the music, despite being absolutely stunning. I love the music in Xenoblade. It's the world. It's the setting. That is my favorite element. I absolutely love the whole concept of the Bionis and the Mechonis. That it's probably the most original RPG setting I ever experienced, and still one of my favorite, if not my favorite. I mean, since when we have like the world, which in reality it's just two titans who fought each other and then they're sleeping, but one is awakening. I mean, when you see the map, like the entire huge map of a section is just the hand of the Mechonis, and it's shaped like a hand. It's so cool. And as I say, I never experienced a setting like this. Probably one of the, I say, probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite setting. But I also really enjoyed the story. The characters are great, from like, say, Shulk. I was blanking on the name. Like Shulk, Fiora, Dunban, Running Time, of course, and all the others. Like, absolutely timeless masterpiece, and easily, I would say, among my favorite games and RPGs of all time. I still need to play the rest of the series. Like, I will never play Xenoblade Chronicles X unless they remade it on the Switch, which I don't understand why they're taking so long with this, but it's okay. I it seems something they should do eventually, because I'm very curious by that game. But especially, I never played Xenoblade 2, Xenoblade Torna, the Golden Country, I think it's called, a pseudo sequel or prequel, if I remember correctly, actually, of the series. And Xenoblade 3. I own 2 and 3, so I want to play it. I could have played this year, but it's not going to happen. It's going to be next year. But eventually I will play all the Xenoblade games. It's because I love one so much, and I'm sure I'm going to absolutely love the rest of the series. Just for what they created, like, Monolith Soft did something really, really special. From the remnants of the Xenogears and Xenosaga series to create this huge world that, fortunately, has become massively successful. Very, very happy. So, number 2, one of my, easily, as you can see, one of my favorite 3DS game, and one of my favorite RPGs of all time, Xenoblade Chronicles. Number 1, originally Xenoblade was first position because of how good and special it is. But then, thinking about it, this almost at the last moment surpassed it, and that it's Persona Q2. Maybe just for the fact that it's the game that finally made me appreciate Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, which is a huge accomplishment considering how uninterested I was with regards to that uber popular series. But also simply for the fact Persona Q2 is such a good game. It's kind of a spin-off, and I would kind of say a love letter to the 3, 4, 5 trilogy of games, because it has primarily, it's kind of this mixture between Etrian Odyssey and Persona in battle, which worked very, very well to me. And I love every second of the 80 plus hours I spent into that game. I massively enjoyed it. It made me fall in love with all the characters involved. So by the time I will play Persona 5 Royal this year, I'm already very familiar with the characters since I played Q2 and I already played 5 Strikers, so I'm very familiar with Joker and the others. But I already played Persona 4 Golden by the time I played Q2, and I really enjoyed 4 Golden. And immediately after, basically, I played 3 Portable. So I'm getting there with Persona. But it also strongly confirmed who is my favorite character of all of that. And it's, of course, it's the female protagonist from 3 Portable. Easily my favorite Persona character. She steals the show in that game. She's amazing. But then, of course, like, I fell in love with the combat system. I finally understood what was wrong with me and Shin Megami Tensei Persona before this. Even with 4, while I liked 4 very much, I still had this sort of mental block with me, which Q2 completely, finally made me deal with it, surpass it, and now I'm a big fan of SMT and Persona, thanks to this game. So that has to be commended, because I can finally enjoy one of the most beloved JRPG series out there. Well, before, as I said, I didn't care about Persona and Shin Megami Tensei. But primarily, that's a big accomplishment. But at the end of the day, Persona Q2 is such a good game. Favorite JRPG on the 3DS. One of my favorite RPGs I ever experienced. I wouldn't be surprised if this might be in my top games of all time, because it was an unforgettable experience from beginning to end. I love that sort of like the cinema setting and themes. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the battle system. The music was great. I mean, it's again a case of a total package, 10 out of 10 of a game to me. And without a doubt, I mean, I had some doubts at the beginning, but thinking about it, without a doubt, my favorite 3DS game. Most likely, it's not a surprise, but I don't care. Persona Q2, it's so good. So there you have it. These are my top 11 3DS games. Definitely let me know what you think. What are your favorite 3DS games? What do you think about the 3DS? How can you not like it if that's your answer? But easily I would say one of my favorite consoles of all time, even though I don't have too many games for it, but all the games I had so far, all being great experience. In its own weird way, even Hyrule Warriors, I enjoyed for what it was, despite the sickness of the Muso style, but it's been a great journey. Cannot wait to explore more of its very good library. But this is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, guys, like always, and I'll see you next time. Take care.